We are winding down the clock on another 49ers loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's become very clear that if the 49ers have to play the Chiefs, they're not going to win. That's just the way that it is. Oh my gosh, dude, I'm so tired of losing to this team, Sunil. I know that you are. I know that everybody in this freaking chat is. But I feel like there was a lot of things that came from this game that tell us so much more about this team and where it's truly at that we have to discuss along with this loss. So we'll get into the loss first, and then we will discuss some long-term ramifications of a game like this, and we will do it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And normally these games would be done with David, but David is at the game. This was a game I had planned on attending. And the only reason I did not is because my son, his birthday, for his birthday, we were going to the Ravens-Bucks game. I'm so glad I didn't take this trip across country. I would have been devastated. I would have been pissed. So here we are, Sunil filling in. It's been a while, Sunil. All in all,
yeah, man, we always come back to great news together, right? Whenever I fill in for David, it's unfortunate that it's never on good terms with the post game rant, but glad to be back talking shop with you, man. Just wish it was under different circumstances.
They really eject Trent.
Yeah, I mean they saw that it was a clear punch, even though he didn't instigate it. But
I'm so tired of this dude. Oh my god, I'm so tired of a lot of little things with this team, and it all just kind of culminated to an explosion of a loss today. We're going to talk about all of them, but since I know that happened, Trent does this way too much. It's super annoying. It's like, bro, you're my age almost. Stop. Just stop. It's so annoying. All right. Let's talk about there's so much to talk about with this game, but first 4 drives of this game to me, Sunil, and you and I were talking a lot back and forth throughout the game. But to me, the first 4 drives of this game for both teams was really where this game was won for the Chiefs and lost for the San Francisco 49ers. The first 4 drives, the San Francisco 49ers had an average starting field position of the 40-yard line, and the Chiefs had an average starting field position of the 21-yard line. Yet, when you look at the score at the end of those 4 drives, the San Francisco 49ers had just 3, and the Kansas City Chiefs had 7. From that point on, the game really felt like an uphill battle. I know that there was a lot of things that happened, but what was your feeling early in this game watching how things were unfolding?
I mean, I had a lot of praise for the defense. I think that they did a really good job, especially in the first half against, Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City offense. But ultimately, the same things that have been biting the 49ers all season: lack of ability to score touchdowns in the red zone. Just looking, I don't know, Jesse, if you noticed, there was a lot of like body language that just didn't look good. I remember seeing, it's a play that stood out. It was Brandon Ayuk going in motion, but it was like it didn't seem like it was game speed. It seemed like he was just going, and I think that ended up leading to like an incompletion or maybe even an interception. I don't remember what it was. Brock Purdy's body language throughout the game in that first, those first 4 drives didn't look good. He didn't look confident. And what was really interesting to me, I don't know if you were listening to the telecast, Jesse, but Tom Brady had a lot of praise for Brock Purdy in the beginning of the game, like when they were building up to the game. But during the game, he was calling out a lot of the things that I think guys like you have talked about in the past. I know guys like Marco that are talking about how, Brock Purdy may be like kind of playing outside of his, is getting a lot of credit for things. And I think he does deserve a lot of credit for,
He
the
does.
team going so far, but also the limitations are there as well. And I think those limitations really showed up in this game. Not to say this game was all on Brock Purdy. I think
No, 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 no,
lot
no.
of
It's
blame
definitely
can
not.
go around on all of this game, but those are the big things I think, Jesse, that really stood out to me. The body language of this game wasn't very, very good. And I think a lot of things, like you mentioned, were exposed that the 49ers have some real decisions to make moving forward.
They do have some real decisions, and we'll talk towards the end of the show about some of those decisions. But no, certainly, I mean, the game can't all be on one person. But and we'll get more in depth on Purdy. I actually didn't have him as a topic line. I knew that he would come up naturally throughout the show, but I'll just add him as a topic line, knowing that he'll eventually come up and we'll want to discuss it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Tom Brady definitely talked about it, and there's a lot of little things that happened throughout that game. Yes, I understand that the 49ers were way undermanned. They were without all of their starting receivers, and they had George Kittle. But welcome to Patrick Mahomes' world all season long, right? Everybody loved to compare the stats going into this game and talk about, oh, look at the stats and how he's outplaying Mahomes. Like, well, yeah, but this is what he deals with week in and week out. That's just the reality of the situation. And I felt like at times Purdy definitely made the most of a bad situation. But then as soon as he would do something great, he would turn around and follow it up with just like, dude, what is happening? So we'll talk about him a little bit more. But yeah, man, all in all, there were some offensive issues. And the offensive issues started before the injuries started to stockpile. Obviously, Debo was in and out of the game early on, but Ayuk was in the game. And there were so many miscues throughout this game. It's just, to me, I'll go back and watch the film, but this is how I felt in the moment. In the moment, I don't know that the Chiefs were doing anything spectacular. I felt like the 49ers just put so much pressure on themselves to perform that they weren't performing in situations where they would normally perform. You have the Ayuk drop. You had Purdy throwing the ball off of Pooney's helmet. So many little things. They couldn't run the ball early on, and then the offense just died. What did you see with this offense as a whole outside of the injuries? I mean, obviously we know the injuries were a thing, but just talk about this offense and some of your thoughts.
So I've gotten, obviously I'm a Kyle Shanahan homer,
Mhm.
um, but I also get a lot of criticism, Jesse, because I've come on this show and said that I don't know if this team could ever be the Chiefs. I don't know. I've said, Andy Reid is the best quarterback. I mean, best quarterback, best coach in the league, and I don't think that Kyle Shanahan beats Andy Reid, especially when Andy Reid is coming off of a bye week, right? And I think one of the biggest distinctions that we saw in this game when it comes to both of these guys, and I know Kyle Shanahan is going to take a lot of blame as he should, and people are going to start questioning why is he a genius and all of this type of stuff. But whenever, Jesse, my biggest comp for Kyle Shanahan has always been Andy Reid, because Andy
Mhm.
Reid has had these struggles before, when he was with the Eagles, that people just have forgotten about because of the success he's had with Kansas City. But the reason why Andy Reid is so much better than Kyle Shanahan right now is Andy Reid is willing to just do the simple things well and not necessarily need all the explosives and all of these things. He's not throwing the ball down the field. He's not, doing anything out of the ordinary. He knows he has the best quarterback in the league, and he's willing to dink dunk. What was the thing, the big term earlier, dink and dunk or
Dink
whatever.
and dunk. Yeah, yeah.
He's okay with that because it wins games, right? And I think that what I saw with Kyle Shanahan is when the game, you're losing players and you don't have the same amount of talent and all this type of stuff. He's not willing to just do those simple things, the screen games, the bootlegs, the easy cross pass, like things like that. Now, maybe the X and O's doesn't play that. Maybe the pressure's the pressure that the Kansas City defensive line was too much. Maybe he doesn't have enough time in the pocket. I don't know. But what I did notice is that the reason why Patrick Mahomes during the regular season, people are like, oh, he's not like putting up these crazy numbers and all, and he's not. But they constantly win because he doesn't make huge mistakes, even though he did throw, an interception or maybe even two this game. But they keep the game simple enough to where he could just make the right play when it matters, and then that ends up being the win, which was that rushing play down the sideline that ended up getting like 35 yards. It's just they just don't ever take themselves out of a win, and I think the 49ers unfortunately did on multiple occasions in this game.
This is why going into this game, for the first time all season last year, I picked the 49ers to win all season. And through the first 6 weeks this year, I picked the 49ers to win. This is the first time I've picked against them, and I was fairly confident in doing so because the Chiefs do this. This is what they do. This is how they win. Every game with them is close. Every game is close, and they win most of the time. This whole team is battle-tested. Mahomes is obviously battle-tested. Reed, Kelsey, but the whole team is used to playing in grimy games and winning. And that's what this was. This was a game where it's you and I are MMA guys, but it's like when the flashy striker meets the wrestler. It's like, all right, well, you better have a good gas tank. Like everything's going to get tested. We're going to test your stamina. We're going to test your ground game. We're going to make this ugly. We're not going to just allow you to just pick us apart on your feet. No. You're going to come to our world, and we're going to smother you and see how you deal with it. And that's what the Chiefs did to the 49ers today. They just hung around and kept it close and did what they had to do, barely hung on to their lead. And then when it was time, Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things. And that's what he always does. That's what he always does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, at a certain point, it's the same defensive coordinators, Jesse, that Kyle Shanahan just doesn't have an answer for, right?
Yep.
Spags, we talked about Brian Flores, these guys that they run the, this man coverage, exotic blitzes, things like that. And this offense, no matter, who the quarterback is, it's not just a Purdy thing. I mean, even when Jimmy was the quarterback, Kyle Shanahan just hasn't figured that out, had a solution. Every now and then, maybe they're able to score every now and then. But as far as like when they need a play, for some reason, the defensive coordinator ends up winning against Kyle Shanahan when it's these, the same handful. And I'm not saying it's the whole league. It's a handful of defensive coordinators that tend to have Shanahan's number. And unfortunately, Spagnuolo is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, Spagnuolo usually ends up in a Super Bowl, and that's who you got to get through. So it's kind of a big deal. This guy says, I don't even know.
Players smoking? I don't know.
I don't get that one. Thanks, this guy. I appreciate you. Matt says this team needs a fire sale, not getting past the Lions or Vikes. So we're going to talk about it. Cryptic says Debo has no heart. He's sick or whatever. We're going to talk about this too. Why is Bell on the field when Cowing actually made a play? Offense can't even do simple stuff. Sad. Okay. Ty said, and thank you guys. Ty says Kittle and Cowing both should have had a TD. This is Brock's worst game. Yeah, I agree. They should have had a TD. I'm going to do the Lil Wayne. Thank you. After every super chat. Matt says, can we get Ben Johnson a new quarterback? Man, talk about quarterbacks. Jared Goff playing out of his mind the last few weeks. Brother Bob says, Kyle Levy needs to go. His offense blows versus Spags. Yeah, it's not good. Jason says, Brock's underthrows and picks killed us. I put this in here, not because of the comment per se, but Chiefs, again, has been in here since the Super Bowl. I had to give him his spotlight. You guys won fair and square. Congratulations to you. I hate your guts. All right. Michael says, Kyle, got to go. You can be considered an offensive guru. And the moment you don't have the most offensive talent known to man, your offense blows. David Barclay says, anyone else? Fire Lyle. Team sucks. And now, okay. Brother Bob says we need to spend 4 draft picks on a QB again. No, don't please. Please don't do that. RS says both QBs come to the game with backup wide receivers and running backs. Only one is worth $60 million a year. I'll let you choose. Matt says Purdy underthrew Kittle and Cowing on TDs. What the F? Matt also says Kyle Shanahan's offense and play calling is vanilla. Look at Ben Johnson, creative and always puts the defense on their heels. I will say that quarterback sneak was the best play call from Kyle all year. That was a really good play call. It's like, dude, where is this a majority of the time? What is going on, man? It was such a good play call. Like, such a good play call. Cryptic says, I am overreacting with Debo. I hope he's okay, but geez, how many times are we going to lose games when teams are losing weapons before the game? Actually, I don't. I'm not going to get disrespectful. Like, maybe if you were disrespectful, you're overreacting. But let's talk about it for a second. Debo Samuel, he's the guy that calls out sick when you need the most staffing. It's like Black Friday, and Debo always finds a way to just a flat tire. I couldn't do it. I'm snowed in. Oh, I'm sick. I can't make it. Every time, I swear, you need Debo in a big moment since he signed his contract. He does this. It's like, oh, sure. The teams he talked trash against, where it was like the Eagles and the Rams, he'll be there. But Cleveland, you start a fight before the game, you get hurt. Super Bowl, you get banged up. Playoffs, you got banged up. This game, you're out. It's just, dude, how does this always happen with this guy, man? I don't understand it. I don't expect you to have a crazy take here. I did just want to talk about it, though, because we talk about Trent getting thrown out of the game and how frustrating it is that he's always getting in these fist fights when the game's over. You lost. You had a chance to insert your dominance. You lost the game. We can do the same thing about Debo. Always unreliable in these moments when you need him most. It's just the same old garbage with this team, and it seemed to show up against the team that always finds a way to expose these weaknesses with the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I think when this is obviously extreme low for the 49ers, and we're probably overlooked. I mean, I know there's tons of games where we were in it or we won because Debo was on the field. Obviously that year that he, broke all of those records and his contract year, he carried this offense, right? Before CMC was here, he was the reason why, this team was competitive on offense multiple times. But yeah, I mean, look, the reality is you can be a great player, but the best ability is availability. And when your team needs you the most, and this is something, we mentioned, we've been mentioning other sports. You mentioned MMA. Let's talk about basketball, right? Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is an amazing player. Probably if he could be healthy and played, he would always be, a top 3 player and probably make some lists as the best player in the league. Problem is, he can't string together a full season. Problem is, when his team needs him, he can't stay healthy. And because of that, it makes it really, really tough because you're too good to just drop, right? And let go of, but you also take up a roster spot, and a lot of our offense is built with you being on the field. And if you're not there, it changes a lot of things because of what Debo is able to do. So yeah, I mean, it's really, really unfortunate. I don't want to obviously pile on Debo when times are down, but there's a rumor. There's a lot of talk about, hey, he might be somebody that could be traded at the trade deadline. I know we have a topic where maybe we talk about stuff like that, but I think this is an eye-opening experience. Let's just put it that way.
It's listen. Maybe he had to go to the hospital, and if that's the case, then I get it, and I'm sorry.
I truly believe he was sick because
I do too. But listen,
I just
man,
don't know how you get sick during warmups. That's what's confusing. Is it like? Is it a sickness? This is what I really want to know, Jesse. I do believe he's sick.
I 100%. I know he's sick. I know he's.
Here's the thing: is it is it something that he's doing that caused him to get sick, right? Something that he's doing that isn't professional, something that he's doing that isn't dotting all his I's, crossing all his T's, that caused him to get sick during warmups, right? Like, to me, what does that mean? Like, what did he do last night? That caused him to be sick this morning. That's, to me, what I think the deeper issue is. If this is, hey, just natural, whatever, bad luck, okay, cool. But if it's something that he caused based off of choices and decisions the night before, and obviously this is all speculation. I'm not
who
saying
knows? I don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah, but that would be unfortunate if it comes out that he got sick because he was out doing something last night that he wasn't just preparing for the game.
Ross says, I love your content most of the time, Jesse, but Debo bias is ridiculous. He's nowhere near perfect, but man, he isn't the main issue. Oh, Ross, listen. First of all, appreciate you watching. And second of all, I would never, ever expect for you to agree with everything that I say. But I'm also, we're going to talk about a lot of things. Debo is not the main issue. What I brought up was a lot of the issues that are seemingly little things that have derailed this team from winning Super Bowls over the years crept up today. And it's all the same BS. My point is this: if Debo is the dude that he was a couple years ago when he got paid, who deservedly has the name Debo, we know he's a savage. And if Debo's the dude that's going to talk and say, this is the best team in football, we should have Super Bowls. You, a few weeks ago, when you were hurt, conveniently enough, Debo, said that you should have multiple rings, meaning you are better than the Kansas City Chiefs. Yet, when the game comes up, you're too sick to play. That's an issue with me. It's an absolute issue with me. You know how many great players push through crazy sicknesses? I mean, Chris Sims played through a broken spleen, for gosh sakes. Chris Sims played through a spleen, or a lacerated spleen. Like, come on, what are we doing? My man has a head cold in the biggest game of the year, not just because it's the Chiefs only, but you're 3-3 and you need this win. You need this win for the season. And you're the one that said, this is the best team. We should have multiple Super Bowls. Yet again, you leave the team hung out to dry, much like you did with Cleveland when you got hurt and you were talking all that trash pregame. He always finds a way to not be there to cash the checks that he's the one that's writing them, but then the team has to go cash them. I'm sorry. It's just a microcosm of what this team is and why they haven't won a Super Bowl. So no, Debo's not the only reason, but he is a reason, and that's what this team is. That's why they don't have a Super Bowl. So next time, Debo, when you're thinking, oh, yeah, we're the best team, we should have a ring, maybe you should look internally and remember these things as to why you guys are ringless. That's where I'm coming from.
I mean, there's winning behaviors, winning mentality, and it's hard to keep defending that the 49ers have it.
Yeah, dude. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. Indigenous Anawa says, once again, Andy Reid stepping on Kyle's weak productions, royal flush. This Purdy talks gotta stop. Talk about Purdy. Boxing fan ×4, making sure that we all know he's a fan. He says, look like Mike Tyson whenever he got hit clean. Okay, I like the analogy. Matt says, if he can't beat a top DC, then fire him. Yeah, I mean,
it's definitely going that route, right? You can't
yeah, we're headed in the direction it feels like. Yeah.
Like Kyle Shanahan isn't what's it called? He isn't bulletproof anymore. Like, ultimately, Jesse, you mentioned, at what point are you ready to fire Kyle Shanahan, right? And I said, give him the same leash that the Eagles gave Andy Reid, and that's two back-to-back non-playoff season, 2 back-to-back losing seasons. And maybe with the way time frame is right now, it's not even that. It's like, maybe you just missed the playoffs, or just bad outings in the playoffs, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I mean, at this point, you can't keep going off of, hey, but he's been to this many NFC championship games and this many Super Bowls. Ultimately, like if the team isn't looking like it's competitive, at that point, you got to blame the leader, and the leader is Kyle Shanahan. So he's absolutely on the hot seat and absolutely is, deserves any of the um criticism.
Criticism.
And if York feels like there's a coach out there that becomes available that he really likes, I mean, yo, if you I'm not gonna be mad if he pulls the cord on Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but I do agree with what you're basically saying, which is you're paid because you are that offensive guy. So if every time you play the toughest defenses, your offense turns into an ish show and can't score, that's an issue. Ravi says BP is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but I feel we'll hit a point where we will want to move on for similar reasons. Again, Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy. Yeah, I mean, it's not even close. It's not even close who's better, but also, I mean, all I've ever said is he's not a franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
And
I
I've
mean,
heard it, I've heard a lot.
if you pay him $60 million, this team is going to look like this more and more often. And not because he's not necessarily good enough, but he obviously is a beneficiary to the talent around him and his limitations. He Patrick Mahomes is able to overcome lack of talent because of his game and his football IQ and his ability to make plays and things of that nature. The $60 million price tag causes you to have less talent on your team. If you have a quarterback that can't make up that difference with his talent, then he shouldn't be paid that amount of money. And I think that's where, Brock Purdy at $30 million, great. Keep him as your quarterback, whatever the case may be. You could still put a really good roster around him. But if you got to pay him, $60 million, $50 million, like this team isn't going to be better for that.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's the whole like if you couldn't, they had their chances to get it done, last year and this year. And so it's like, okay, well, if you pay Brian, it won't look like this necessarily. Like this is like ground zero as bad as it can get. But I mean, Cowing, Pearsall, and Ayuk is what your future looks like. That's what your future looks like, minus Kittle eventually when you pay Brock Purdy. And so you've got to hope that you can hit on a tight end and do these things. But the offense today, now obviously Cowing and Pearsall will grow, but that's what your future is. These are the players, the Cowings, the Pearsalls, the Masons, and the Ayuks. That's your future. Actually, let's talk about Ayuk. I mean, so frustrated with this loss. I forget that he was even injured, man. And it looked to be a devastating injury. Man, where do they go without Brandon Ayuk? Like, let's assume this is season ending. Like, what do we do from here?
Yeah, I mean, prayers for Ayuk. Obviously, that didn't look good. I mean, he was walking without
Mm-hmm.
any help, which I think
But then he
um,
was carted off after he
he
left
was
the tent.
carted off. But the fact that he could even put weight on it, to me, is what I'm saying. That means that maybe it's not as terrible as those
Yeah.
injuries where they can't even put weight on it, right? Because ultimately, I think he's out for a significant amount of time, but maybe not everything was torn in there
Mm.
where it's like a season-ending injury. Just that's all I'm saying. Because
Yeah, for sure. No, I see where
usually,
you're going.
if it's torn up, like you can't put any weight on it, right? So to me, that's a little bit better, I guess. But ultimately, yeah, we're like, I mean, here's the thing, Jesse. Even if Ayuk's healthy, do we think this team is any different? You know what I mean? Like Ayuk is a great player. He doesn't have it this season, for whatever reason. Maybe it's the slow. He missed training camp. Timing's off with Purdy. Who knows what the reality is? I think we both feel like he's a better player than what he's been showing this season. And it's unfortunate the injury, but I don't think a healthy Ayuk necessarily changes what we think about this team. And if Ayuk is healthy, do we think that the 49ers win? I don't know. I don't think that he's the reason. Him going down is the reason why they necessarily lost either. I still think the same challenges that they had in the red zone have been with a healthy Ayuk. I think the same issues with you know, the ball placement and things like that are even with a healthy Ayuk
Yeah.
in the. So to me, yeah, it's unfortunate, and obviously you lose a guy with a lot of talent that you invested a lot of money in, which is very, very hard to swallow. But I still think this team is a mediocre team with him or without him.
Let's talk about the defense for a second. I feel like the defense slash Bosa, I feel like this was the bright spot of the game. I understand that, you know, there were some drives given up, but man, they really gave the 49ers offense some good field position, not only in the first 4 drives that we talked about earlier, where the 49ers started on the 40-yard line was their average starting position against the Kansas City Chiefs for the first 4 drives of the game, in big part because of this defense. And they were only able to come away with 3 points. Not only that, but they were put in position again, much like they were in the Super Bowl, with an interception to start the second half, which did result in a touchdown. I think this defense, and Bosa in particular, very early in this game, really kind of set the tone. And this is like the one positive I have coming out of this game, is I felt like the defense did a pretty damn good job. How did you feel about the defense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they constantly were put in a position where they had to play perfect for this team even to have a chance. And that was because the offense wasn't taking advantage of all the opportunities that the defense was giving. I mean, momentum was on the 49ers side multiple times in this game, Jesse, because of the 49ers defense. They had, you know, great stops. They brought a lot of energy. They were making it difficult um for for Patrick Mahomes. You know, the run game wasn't really the Kansas City run game wasn't really effective till, you know, later on in the game. And ultimately, like, you can only do so much to the greatest, like potentially the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, you're not going to have a shutout on him necessarily. So they played really, really good. I think that the defense gets a lot of flack, and I think they deserve, you know, the coaching staff, whatever. They had a good game plan installed for this team. Unfortunately, you know, the offense didn't do enough at all to give them any kind of cushion. And when they did make, you know, some bonehead plays, which was, you know, obviously letting Mahomes get a few open lanes when he's rushing, like at that point, you know, you're going to make mistakes against a great quarterback. The problem is, you know,
Yeah.
the offense didn't put any points on the board to give them any kind of cushion to make up for that. At that point, those are deal breakers, and unfortunately, you know, that's how the game ended.
Yeah, and I do understand that the defense gave up some things. Like, you're going to give things up sometimes against Patrick Mahomes, but the big deep, you know, the deep plays weren't there. They were able to kind of contain everything in front of them. Obviously, the Patrick Mahomes run was incredible, but we do have to remember that the offense multiple times wet the bed when they had opportunities. And it's like, you can only hold the dam for so long. You can only hold the dam for so long when not only are you trying to hold it, but then your offense is on the other side, like with the water, trying to push against you. Like, yeah, come on, just keep holding this thing. Like, eventually it's gonna break. You're gonna see some leaks in the whole thing. But ultimately, to me, they played well for a majority of this game. They played well enough for the 49ers to win this game. They are far from the reason as to why this game was lost. Were they perfect? No, but I thought Bosa played well. Mustafa was incredible at times. You know, and again, I'll go back and watch it, but
Floyd played
they
well.
were Floyd played well. Yeah. I mean, and Campbell, really not a lot of bad things from Campbell. I mean, as bad as he has been, I don't feel like he was awful this game. I'm not saying he was great, but I was really worried that he was going to be the reason that that this team was going to lose. And I just didn't see that, at least at first glance watching things. So I
Look,
don't
I
know. I
mean,
felt like the defense was pretty decent.
they played a lot more of Winters, which obviously limits the ability for Campbell to make a bad play. Winters had some missed tackles that obviously weren't great, but I feel like his energy was really good. Kalia Davis with an amazing defensive play, right? Like the interception that he did, it's the one man show or whatever. I think Lenore had a solid game as well. This defense, I think, like you mentioned, they played well enough for this game for it to be a W.
Real
Unfortunately,
quick, Shanahan said that the 49ers are worried that Brandon Ayuk has an ACL tear.
yeah. So,
So there you go.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, the defense wasn't the reason why this team lost. They played well enough for this team to get a lot of momentum on their side. They were let down by the offense and the special teams in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even the big special teams play was the defense. The defense was on the field when they did the fake special teams on fourth down to start the game or whatever. That was the defense on the field. So it wasn't even the special teams. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, once again, the same things over and over. They just continue to wet the bed. So Neil, I'm gonna do this real quick. We're gonna go to our last topic, and then I'll give you the opportunity to dip if you need to. You can stick around. I'm not kicking you out, but there's a ton of super chats, and I don't want to make you stick. You know what I mean? To read those, but I do want to get through our topics in case you have to go. At least we were able to get through the topics. So the final topic I have is, and this is where I wanted to spend a majority of time, is, well, we can talk about Purdy too if you want, but ultimately I think there's bigger things than Brock Purdy in this moment. In this moment, I think we need to start to consider calling it quits. And let me preface this by saying what I mean by calling it quits is the 49ers should not be buyers at the trade deadline at all. They should look to sell at the trade deadline. In my opinion, and I said this in the offseason, you've heard me say this a lot throughout the last couple of weeks as the season's gone up and down, I felt like the 49ers were hanging on a year too long, potentially going into this year, and should have considered having a bit of a fire sale with some of the more expensive older players entering this season so that they didn't set themselves back 2 years by hanging on a year too long. Ultimately, I knew that was never going to happen. I knew that the 49ers were going to take this all-in approach. But now that they have, and we've seen this season for 7 games, the 49ers may beat Dallas next week. That does literally nothing for me. Does nothing for me. I am out on the 49ers having a chance to win the Super Bowl. They're not going to rope me back in. They're just not. They can go and on this little streak and do some of the things that they've done and get some of these players back. I believe it's over for this team. I think it's very clear that it's over for this team. I think the 49ers should throw in the towel and start the rebuild process as quickly as possible. That includes getting rid of players like Debo if people are interested. God, if you can get anything for him. I also think it sucks to talk about it in this moment if Ayuk is hurt, but he has a big lump sum that is owed to him, I think, March of next year, which means the 49ers have a little mini out before this contract really gets started. I think they should consider that coming off this injury. I think it's time, in my opinion, to start looking the other direction instead of trying to be buyers and just adding more contracts and more potentially aging players to this team. I think they should be done. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know we haven't done a weekly show as often because of my work schedule, but I believe it was our last, or maybe, one of the last shows we did. We were talking about should the 49ers be buyers and sellers. And I don't know if you remember my answer, Jesse, but I said,
Yeah.
it depends on this game, right? I said, I'll give you, I won't be able to give you a proper answer till they play the Chiefs, because how they look against the Chiefs is going to be the deciding factor for me, whether or not they should be buyers and sellers. I'll go a step further than what you got, because I agree. They should be sellers. Sit CMC for the whole season. Don't bring them back. Don't open up the window. let him have a full year off, get those tendonitis fully healthy, because him coming in is not ultimately, this is not, hey, let's make the playoffs and look good. This is, can we win a Super Bowl? Yes or no? And I agree with you. This team cannot win a Super Bowl as it is. I'm resting guys like CMC. I'm not out on BA as much as you are, but I'm definitely looking to trade Debo. I'm not.
I would prefer to have kept him as a part of the rebuild, but this injury does change things. It just does. But go ahead.
Well, we don't know exactly the depth of the injury quite yet.
Assuming it's an ACL,
Yeah.
it's an ACL, but go ahead.
I'm looking to play these younger guys, see what we have in them. I am like you mentioned, I'm trying to trade away pieces, get picks. I'm not quote unquote tanking, but if you could, you're 3-4 right now. If you don't necessarily play all of your talent, try to keep guys healthy, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you're a top 10 pick and one of these quarterbacks is available for you, like that is coming up in some of these drafts, and you hit on the right quarterback, that opens up a window really quickly, i.e. Houston with CJ Stroud, right? Like so you're even Jordan Love with Green Bay. So yeah, I think strategically, Jesse, it is smarter to sell at this moment than buy. And, is it a fire sell? And should you fire Shanahan and all that kind of stuff? I mean, look, I think everything should be on the board, because ultimately it's win a Super Bowl and that's it. But, also it's like, be strategic, right? You fire Shanahan. That doesn't necessarily mean the next guy in is going to be better this year. I think Shanahan does have a high bar, whether people want to admit it or not. Like, your team, you're constantly at least competitive if you have a guy like Kyle Shanahan at the helm. I do think we need to get, but I do think that we have a lot of things that are broken. It's not just personnel, it's also the coaching staff, and maybe, some stuff that's going on in the front office. Like, there needs to be a huge kind of like assessment of what's going on, because this isn't the product that we expected at the beginning of the season. And I think all of these reasons why need to be what's it called, Jesse? Like, they need to be identified and they need to make those changes versus just like putting blinders on and acting like, this team has some, like a CMC coming back is going to automatically make them a Super Bowl caliber team. It's not that. There's a lot of holes here. I think some of us act like we know what's going on. I think some of it is, some guys are right, some guys are wrong, some guys are over exaggerating, some guys are under exaggerating, but ultimately this isn't a Super Bowl caliber team right now. Injuries did play a role in that, but also there's some other things that need to be fixed. And I think all things should be on the board as far as how to solve those. One of them being, selling.
Yeah, I think, and it doesn't have to be everybody, right? But I'm shopping. I'm not getting rid of people just to get rid of them, but I'm certainly shopping. If you can get a 3rd-round pick for Debo, Kittle, I would put up, then see what I get. Obviously not Bosa. Floyd, if you can get, people would love pass rushers right now. You get something for Floyd. Warner I'm keeping, Bosa I'm keeping. I'm not even trying to shop them. You're not going to trade a quarterback midseason, and Purdy still has one more year to be really, really cheap. So for me, I'm not getting rid of Purdy by any means, but I'm definitely like, hey, let's see how you play with these young wide receivers. Let's build them up. Let's see what we got in them. Let's go into next year's draft, and let's have you play out the final year of your deal, see what it's like, and let's make a decision after next year. Kyle, maybe he's lost the locker room, and if that's the case, you got to get rid of him. But if he hasn't lost the locker room, maybe he can get another year. It's like him and Purdy are tied at the hip. You kind of make the decision on them together as you move forward. So I think that's an option. But yeah, man, I think, even Trent, if somebody wants Trent, if somebody wants CMC and they're willing to give good assets to get it, I'm listening. I am listening. I'm sorry, this team's not going to rope me back in. They're just not. They're not. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. It's over. So why? Oh, so we can win the division. For what? For what? Who cares? This team, we're 40. I was so frustrated with this fan base going into this game. People were just gleaning. Oh my God. Spagnolo said so many nice things about Purdy. And oh my God, they said so many nice things about this player. And they were talking up this player and this player. That's where we've gotten to, where as a fan base, we're excited when the champions talk good about you. This is the San Francisco 49ers. We have been the standard of excellence in the NFL for a long, long time. No, they have not won a Super Bowl, but to get excited over those little things, that's where we are at. No, if we're not winning a Super Bowl and this team as constructed, was the final year, why even go through it? Why hang on to these contracts? Why wait till the end of the year when there's no value for these players? Nobody's going to want Debo at the end of the year. Teams get excited and desperate when they're making these runs. It's like, oh my gosh, we have a chance to win. They're going to overpay for these players. You wait till the end of the season and try to do it. They're not going to overpay for anything. They may not pay anything for these guys. So then you've just set the rebuild back even further. These are the tough decisions you have to make as an organization. And if you're not good enough to win a Super Bowl, then you have to be on the right side of this before it's too late. It may already be slightly too late, but it's definitely too late if you let this thing play out. And if it continues to be worse and worse and worse, nobody's going to pay for these players. You're just going to cut them. You're going to eat the money, and you're going to waste third-round picks, fourth-round picks for what? To me, I'm done. I'm out. I'm out on this team having a chance to win a Super Bowl. I've seen enough.
Yeah, and I mean, Kyle Shanahan has to look himself in the mirror too and be like, I got to change too. Like ultimately, the excitement. It's funny because everybody right now, or not everybody, but a lot of people are on this Ben Johnson train, and rightfully so, right? His offense is looking good. He's the hot new offensive, coordinator, and people are saying, okay, like let's make him the coach, right? Well, Jesse, in 2017, who was the Ben Johnson of the league?
Kyle Shanahan.
Right? So all of this stuff that everybody's getting excited about is the exact same thing that Kyle Shanahan was, right? And and I would say, I mean, to a certain extent, it worked out. I think the 49ers were total train wreck when Kyle Shanahan came in. He changed around the culture, made them competitive. We were excited about being fans, but there wasn't, since obviously there was a huge drought since Harbaugh left. But ultimately, we're looking at it, and most people that are ready to move on from Kyle Shanahan have to admit, hey, it didn't work out. So it's not just like, hey, there's a solution out there. Ben Johnson's going to come in and automatically that's going to make sure that this team wins and all that. It's not that easy, but I think I like what you're saying. Like, look, they made a calculated decision. They said, hey, let's go all in. It didn't work out, and I think I'm with you. Like, it's not going to work out. So it's like, okay, do we want to lose everything by doubling down, or do we see, hey, we made a mistake, let's try to salvage some stuff by saving maybe some of the getting some more return on our investment, some of these choices where we double down, let's try to get assets for it so it actually like softens the blow, so that this rebuild isn't, because we're in a rebuild. That's what we need. That's what I think ultimately we're saying, Jesse. Like, it's rebuild time. This team isn't going to win a Super Bowl even next year. Let's just be honest. Like, it's going to be a couple years, but can they be competitive in a couple of years? Yeah, I think if they make the right decisions, obviously there's going to be some luck in play as well, but you have to put yourself in a situation to take advantage of that. And if they double down by making some poor choices throughout this year, ultimately, like you mentioned, maybe in 2 years, if they could get back, that takes 3, 4, 5 years, and we're back being just a unserious team for a long time, which we don't want to go back to, Jesse.
Yeah, most definitely. So we peaked it over. We're still going to go, by the way. We're not done, but I just want to throw a shout out there. We peaked it over 1,000 watching on YouTube. Right now we're around 800 something. and 1,800 total watching. I do want to say this. The sponsor of today's show is Underdog. Listen, the 49ers season may be over, but your season doesn't have to be. You can play Underdog using promo code LSS. They will give you a deposit match up to $1,000, 50% deposit match, and one free pick when you use my promo code. You can play weekly fantasy, daily fantasy. You can do more or lesses, whatever it is that you want to do. Underdog has got you covered. The link is in the description. It's also pinned at the top of the chat for those of you that are watching on YouTube, and supporting our sponsors is supporting the channel. Appreciate y'all for doing so, and appreciate everybody for watching, and those of you that have liked the video and subscribed.
Somehow, Jesse, I'm currently in first place in our fantasy draft.
If I have to give you a jersey, I'm gonna hand deliver it in January when I come out there. But man, that would be bonkers. I've got two fantasy leagues right now on Underdog where I was giving a jersey away. Sunil's in first in one of them. I don't even know who's in first in the other, but dude, that would be crazy. That would be absolutely crazy. Oh my gosh. All right. Spaghetti 49 says, and by the way, I would love nothing more than for that clip that I just gave where I said it's over to somehow be like all over social media when the 49ers win a Super Bowl. I just don't think it's going to happen. But if I'm wrong, please clip that up, play it. We'll laugh about it for months and months and months while we celebrate a victory. I just think it's done. So there's some more ammo for you. You can clip it, paste it, do whatever you want, and plaster it over social media if I'm wrong. And we'll see how it plays out. Spaghetti 49 says 49ers don't have to pay Brock 50 plus million and fire Kyle. No, you're right. I mean, they can play it out next year. I agree. Dave Barclay says Lyle has become Biden lost. No idea what he's doing. Dave Barclay says, I keep asking, but feel like I've said all of this. Okay. Keith says, I have no problem with Trent. Dude hit him first. I get it, but it happened at the end of the NFC Championship. It's happened at the end of other games that they've already lost. I don't normally, and maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me the game where I'm wrong. But where's the game that the 49ers won where Trent's punching somebody? Where's that at? MLEX says, I've been so optimistic even with our struggles, but man, I think it's officially time to move on from Kyle Shanahan. Purdy is officially not worth $60 million. Go get Ben Johnson. I'll say this, though. This is the hard part. If you do get rid of, let's assume they get rid of Kyle Shanahan. They start the fire sale like I'm talking about, and they've decided that Purdy is not worth $60 million. How do you sell that to any incoming head coach? Let's be realistic. Who the F wants that? Who wants that?
Unless they get a high draft pick, right? That's the only saving grace. They have to start, quote unquote, tanking. And that's where it's like, hey, Jed York, be strategic, man. Be strategic, because ultimately, if you are thinking that Kyle Shanahan might not be the answer for you, like having a high draft pick where you can maybe come in and be able to pick your quarterback, that's the way that you sell it, right? Because this defense is still this defense. So
I think the hard part is, Sunil, and this is where 49er fans have to be very, very careful. There's a big segment of this fan base that seems that they're not out on Brock being the franchise quarterback, but they're out on Kyle being the coach. They have to understand that when new coaches come in, if you're going to lure a good potential candidate to you, they want their guy. And what if Purdy's not their guy? Now you've gotten rid of Purdy and Shanahan. It's not necessarily just Shanahan and Purdy. And if it is, and that's the way that Jed York's selling it, like, hey, no, Purdy's our guy, we just got rid of Shanahan, you're eliminating a lot of potential candidates, because they may look at it and be like, Purdy's not my guy. I don't want that. And that's so Miami, now, right? Yeah, that's Miami. So you might be in a situation where you're bringing in a less than stellar head coach just because you want Purdy, or you're bringing in the top guy and he's like, yeah, but I want my guy. I'm going to go get my guy, whatever that takes. So be careful what you wish for. This is usually both of them together. You're not just getting rid of Kyle if you want the best candidates. It's just not the way that it works in the NFL.
Which, Jesse, means that this offseason is the offseason that that York would need to make that decision, because ultimately, right? Otherwise, if they re-sign Brock Purdy or whatever, then that makes it real difficult. Versus right now, where they could at least maybe franchise tag him or whatever, so the coach has that ability. Because, like you just said, right? I mentioned Miami. The New York Giants are the same way, right? Brian Daboll was that guy, was the Ben Johnson from a few years ago. He gets strapped with a quarterback that might not necessarily be the guy that he wants, and all of a sudden now they're, Brian Daboll, nobody's talking about him. He was like coach of the year when he first got hired and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying, a lot of people, I see guys in the comments like, of course Sunil's saying this because it's Kyle Shanahan and he's a homer. I'm just saying, like, everybody gets excited about that brand new offensive coordinator. All I'm saying is there's a lot more than just getting a new coach and winning. You have to have the right pieces. You have to have the right coaching staff. You have to have the right organization. So it's not just Ben Johnson comes in here and all is solved.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marie. I think that's very kind of you. Also, your team has plenty of injuries, so you guys are going through it as well. Matt says, well, I think with Debo being sick speaks more about being on the trade block. It's an interesting take. I don't think so. I personally don't think so. And I also don't know that Debo's on the trade block. Listen to the wording of what Diana Rossini said. Diana Rossini did not say the 49ers are shopping Debo. She said teams are keeping an eye on Debo as they approach the deadline, which really means what they're doing with the 49ers is what winning teams do across the league. They look at teams that are losing, that have high-profile players that might be on their way out, and they say, how do I go get that guy to help us win right now? And if the 49ers continue to lose, Debo then fits that description, as does multiple players on this team. And those teams that are trying to win are looking at the 49ers and saying, hey, we got something for you. You guys are in a spot where you're on the way down. We're trying to go win a Super Bowl right now. Give us Debo, give us Kittle, give us these guys, and we'll give you a higher pick than probably what you're expecting for them. That's why I also think time to sell. Cash the God says Purdy's still better than Mahomes. I didn't say that. That's what's crazy to me. Listen, let's talk about Purdy because James says it as well. Stop telling us Purdy's good. He proved that he's just another guy. Purdy is good. But I'm also not selling you on let's compare him statistically to Patrick Mahomes. Let's blah, blah. First of all, I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I've been saying that. I've been killed for that over the past year. It is what it is. But those same people that will crush me for that will go listen to other people that will post all over the timeline. Oh, look at, he's better than Mahomes. Oh, look, statistically this is statistically that. When the reality of the situation is statistically, when you look at Brock and Mahomes in this game, if you didn't watch, statistically, they were very similar. You tell me who was clearly the better player. And why was that? Because statistics don't account for game situations. Statistics don't account for turning the ball over unexplainably in the end zone when you have a chance to take a lead. Statistics don't account for two underthrown footballs, one of which was right before half that led to them taking three, and a play or two later, IU seemingly is lost for the season. If you score a touchdown there, none of that happens. The throw to Cowing, underthrown again, which then led to an eventual interception. Statistics don't do that. That's why you have to watch these games. And then these same people will make excuses for what Brock Purdy was playing with today, which is a valid excuse, by the way. I do believe it is a valid excuse. But then they will neglect to use that same excuse for other quarterbacks across the league. You know why? Because they're not watching. You know why? Because they're stat watching. That's the issue I have with it. My whole thing is, let's hold everybody to the same standard. So no, I don't put this game fully on Purdy from a standpoint that, oh, I expect him to play great when he loses everybody. But I also don't expect that Josh Allen should have to play great when he doesn't have the weapons, or Lamar or Patrick. But y'all do. You know why? Because they're elite. But when you won't hold Brock to that same standard in a weird roundabout way, you know what you're saying? You agreed with me all along. You don't think he's elite, just like I don't think he's elite. You think he's good, like I think he's good. You don't think he's worth $60 million, like I don't think he's worth $60 million. And the reality of the situation is we have more common ground than you think. You just don't like the way that I deliver it because I was a Trey Lance guy. That's ultimately what this comes down to. So the reality of the situation is Brock didn't play well today. Brock made a lot of mistakes today. And a lot of that was because he didn't have the weaponry around him. And you know who's not surprised by that? I'm not surprised by that. You may be shell-shocked because you expected something, but you're then going to retreat and be like, well, he didn't have this, and he didn't have that, and he did. Welcome to Patrick Mahomes all season. Josh Allen finally got a receiver. He's 7 games into the year. Unless he threw a pick late in that game when I stopped watching, has 0 interceptions this year. But I'm over the top for saying that Josh Allen's elite and great and all this stuff and off my rocker for not calling Purdy elite. Listen, I'm not putting this whole game or this whole season on Brock, but let's just be honest about what we saw today. This isn't just one game. This Brock Purdy, everything that happened today came to an awful culmination. I do agree with that. But these limitations that have been in his game and have existed, but nobody wants to talk about him because they keep winning or because he puts together a stat line, they've been there. And today, everybody sees it, and it's on the biggest stage because it was the game of the week, and it culminated in a 3-interception game. But these limitations have always been there. They've always been there. You just didn't want to hear it. So that's where I'm at with Brock Purdy. What are your thoughts on Brock Purdy? Not just today, but overall, Sunil.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think, somebody mentioned, there's a couple of things that were mentioned in the chat. Somebody mentioned, hey, the whole first half, he had Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Mason, and still couldn't score a touchdown, right? So it's not that, Brandon Ayuk got injured in the second half. So it's not that, the whole game was without Brandon Ayuk. I mean, I think ultimately we're criticizing Brock Purdy in the realm that of the elite. You know what I mean? It's not like we're saying he's trash.
Which is a win for him. Exactly. Like that's already a win. That's the crazy part. Again, it's all, where is the baseline of the conversation, right? Yeah. If the conversation, and I've said this from the very beginning. If the conversation is Brock is young, Brock is good, I'm excited to see what the future holds, I'm right there with you. But if the conversation is Brock is elite, let's compare him to Mahomes, let's compare him to Allen, look at what Lamar did this weekend. If that's the conversation, that's when I'm going to insert myself and come across like this big freaking hater, when the reality is I think Brock is good. He's good. He's way better than Jimmy. This is the best quarterback the 49ers have had in a long time. I like Brock overall. What I don't like, though, is this early comparison to these elite players and putting him in a spot where he doesn't deserve to be yet because he hasn't stacked the years. So if the conversation is that, then I'm always going to come across like a hater because I'm always going to push back. But if it's, hey, Brock's good, I'm there with you. Let's have a conversation and let's be positive about Brock.
So, and I agree with everything you just said, Jesse, and just to kind of pile on people who might be arguing with you. Look, we are seeing in real time what happens to teams that make the wrong decision on quarterbacks. You see what's going on with Miami. You see what's going on with Jacksonville. You see what's going on with the Giants. You see what's going on with the Cowboys. Like, so if you misdiagnose this position, Jesse, it puts you in a bad situation for a long time. So for all of those that are like, hey, Purdy is the guy, note that if the 49ers make that choice and say, he's our guy, we're going to pay him $60 million, whatever happens to the team over the next 5-6 years, if you agree with that decision, if they win Super Bowls, great. That was the right decision. If they don't, which would be my assessment, not because Purdy's not good enough to win a Super Bowl. Purdy, to me, is not good enough to winning the Super Bowl unless he has all pros all around him, is my assessment of him, which is you can't do that if you're paying him $55-60 million. So that's where I think like we got to open our eyes and say, you pay the wrong guy at quarterback, it can throw your whole team, your whole organization off for a very long time. And I think that's why you get so passionate about it. That's why I think guys that are, trying to have a more nuanced conversation about Brock Purdy get frustrated is we're not saying that he isn't a starting caliber quarterback. We're saying once you pay him $60 million, now you need him to be Mahomes or Lamar or Allen, and even Lamar and Allen.
Yeah.
But even those guys outside of Mahomes, even those guys struggle to be able to compete for a Super Bowl because of how limited the talent is around them because of those contracts. And that's just the reality of a hard cap league. Mahomes is the best out of all of those, Jesse, and he didn't take $60 million. Just keep that in mind when you look at the contract that he signed. And he's constantly renegotiating to make sure that he could get talent on the field. And he's still void of talent and able to make them better. I don't think that we've seen Purdy be able to take lower talented players and just elevate them to a different realm. And that's what you need from somebody you're paying $60 million. And I think both of us are on the same page. We don't think he's that caliber, but that doesn't mean we don't think that he could be a starting caliber quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's definitely that, but forgive me if I'm not going to get excited after a good season or two, after watching Colin Kaepernick, after watching Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, forgive me if I'm going to take my time and really assess the situation and do something differently than what either myself did or a lot of this fan base did when we were evaluating those players. Because just looking at wins and just looking at statistics will leave you befuddled when you look up in a couple of years and you're like, what happened? We were winning with this guy. He was putting up all-time great stats. Like, how did we get here? Oh, well, when you really go back and you look at how Colin Kaepernick played, the signs were always there. They were always in his game. Oh, when you really go look at Jimmy Garoppolo, it's like, the signs were always there. They were always in his game. They've been there for Brock. Doesn't mean he can't improve. He's still young. He's still early in his career, but they have been there, and people want to overlook them once again, making what I would believe or what I believe would be a major mistake if you're just willing to throw all the money in the world at him. I just think that would be a mistake. That's it. That's the stance. People don't like it coming from me. That's fine. That's fine. But people that you do like, I think will eventually come around, and maybe you'll hear it when they say it. Dave Barclay says Lyle needs to go. Finally been year to go. Finally been year wasted. Please. I'm sure that like an semblance of a sentence was there if I just put it together in a different order, but I don't know what you said there. Coach G says, can we beat the Cowboys? We good at beating ourselves. Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't care, dude. Beating the Cowboys is like, does nothing for me. Dave Barclay says, I've been hated on for my observation, but facts. These are all really old, so these have nothing to do with the Brock Purdy conversation, I'm assuming. Bobo says, it was so frustrating listening to Brady call out the poor rush discipline when this has been an issue for the last 5 years. Yeah, listening to Tom Brady kind of break down this team is a little bit sobering, isn't it? Dave Barclay says Debo sucks also. Okay. I'm not going to go that far, but I am frustrated with Debo. Miguel says, I really believe Kyle would rather never win a Super Bowl if his offense isn't featured than win a Super Bowl by adopting a different offense. I don't know what to say to that. You might be right. Keith says, I compared Debo to Jalen Hurts. One great year, 2021. Debo isn't here anymore and probably will never be back. I'm okay with trading him. Remember Jalen well, you're talking about Jalen Hurts, but remember Jalen Hurts was supposed to be the Deebo Samuel. He just got hurt, and then Deebo turned into Deebo. Jordan says, not here to pile on, just more of an agreement of what you're saying with Deebo. Kenneth Walker had a bad flu today. Kenneth Walker had a bad flu today. This is a great point. And you could tell with his body language, he still got out there and balled out. Great observation, Jordan. And you have the perfect name to talk about a flu game. Matt says, Lions have the culture that the 49ers wish they had. All right, Sunil, there's 30 of these things. Are you good, or do you want to go? And totally,
yeah, I'm good, but
either.
I do want look.
Yeah.
Once again, so it's really cute that everybody's jumping on what's hot now, right? Are we saying this 3 years ago about the 49ers culture when everybody was, trying to have, with the beatbox, and everybody was all hyped, and, how much fun the 49ers had and all this kind of stuff? I think what's happening is the 49ers, obviously, if you don't win a Super Bowl, like, everything is scrutinized. They're not good right now. We're always going to pile on worse than what it actually is. But the Lions haven't proven anything yet, right? Yeah, they're hot. Hey, maybe your money's on that they're going to go out and do big things. If Dan Campbell, right now, I'm sure Dan Campbell and the Lions organization would love to have what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch has put together over the past however many years. So if we're going to just act like that 49ers culture hasn't been great and this is just like a down year, yet to be determined if this is forever, right? With the 49ers, it could just be a down year. We know what the 49ers have put together. Yeah, not very short of a Super Bowl, but the Lions haven't even done anything that the 49ers have done. They're just really cute and looking great in their bathing suit right now, but they haven't done anything, right? That game did happen last playoffs, right? The Lions did give up all of that. I don't think the 49ers have ever done that in a playoff game. So let's not get too in the weeds when we're talking about the 49ers and the Lions. And, Lions, hopefully they do well. Like, they're great. I like what they're building over there. But to act like the 49ers want what the Lions have, I don't know about all that.
I would say right now they probably would, but I get, no, your point is well taken. I agree. I think ultimately the culture that you're talking about is a winning culture, right? It doesn't matter what the culture is. Are you winning games or are you not? The culture that you're searching for is a winning culture, and the 49ers have had that. They don't have that right now. Of course, they would love to have the winning culture. So we can say, hey, I bet you they wish they had the culture they had last year. Or I bet you they wish they had the Chiefs or the Lions or the Vikings or whoever's winning this year. They ultimately just want a winning culture, and that I agree with. Cryptic says, hate criticizing the team. I want to believe. It's old, but nobody gets pissed off. No dogs. Who calls out Purdy? Who calls out Ayuk for drop passes? They seem to do more ish before and after games. I remember, Cryptic, 2 seasons ago, I was in a Twitter space, and I made this point. I didn't say it maybe the best way. This team definitely has leaders, but they don't have a player that will grab another player by the face mask and hold them accountable in a big time moment. And I do feel like that's something that this team has needed for a while. I was killed for that take a couple of years ago, and probably because I didn't really walk through it the way that I wanted to. But I do agree with what you're saying, is that is something that is needed on this team, and I think it's been needed for a while personally.
And Jesse, there's only one player on this team that could be that guy, and unfortunately, I don't know if he's built that way, but that's Fred Warner. Fred Warner is the only person that can be that guy because of the level of play he brings, the standard that he has set, and that he's willing to do the things that he would be wanting people to do. I just don't know if he has that in him to be the bad guy, because he's always kind of like the good guy, but he's the only player. Even Bosa can't be that guy. Only Fred Warner on this team, can be that person, just because of the level of consistency of excellence that he brings to the game.
I agree. Toby says the way we played tonight wouldn't surprise me if we lost to Dallas. It would surprise me if we lost to Dallas. Dave says, Sunil said I was going too far with Kyle 4 weeks ago. I think he still thinks you're going too far with Fire Kyle. Shady says, this is something that I've been heavy on and firmly believe it. Any good defensive coordinator gives Kyle fits, especially AFC ones. No, you're right about that. We did the stat earlier when he lost to Flores, how he's 1-9 as a head coach against Flores, Spags, and then what's his name over in Cleveland. Well, now he's 1-10. So the stat continues. Shady says, this is something that I've been heavy on for a while. Yeah. Okay. Did you do it twice, or did I misread and do the same super chat twice? Sorry if I messed up. Brother Bob says, love to see Sunil and other Shayna fans be 100 regarding Kyle Levy. Yeah, I think he's being very, very fair with what his thoughts are tonight. Matt says, by the way, Pearsall can't beat man coverage. Okay. It's only one game for Ricky Pearsall, but press man was all over his film. It was an issue in college. I said it when he was drafted. Again, people didn't want to hear it, but it was true. But I do want to give Ricky all the grace in the world. First of all, I wish that the 49ers had won and we could have opened with a Ricky Pearsall like clap and excitement. I love that he was able to be out there on the field today. I love that he was able to get a catch. I love that he got the standing ovation. I'm just very, very happy for Ricky as an individual. Let's see how his career develops. I'm not going to say that he can't eventually beat press man. Usually rookies are very close to what they were in college, though. So whatever shows up on film in college is likely going to show up your rookie year. It's year 2 and 3 when you can work on those things in an offseason to try to improve on those things. So we'll see how it goes. Dave says, we will be next to no different without Ayuk. Yeah, I mean, Sunil talked about it too. He agrees. Matt says, maybe we should trade for Dallas third string quarterback. All right, chill out. Samir says, defense deserved a win. Special teams didn't. Offense didn't. Kyle didn't. Also, how come we're no longer the physically imposing team? This is a great comment. Sunil, you want to answer? Do you know why we're no longer the physically imposing team?
I mean, I don't know if we could say that we're not. I think like we're going against probably potentially the back-to-back Super Bowl winning team, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Seattle would say that they're more physically imposing than us. I don't think, like that's what I'm saying. Like right now, I think that it's piling on. The team is not good. The team is not winning a Super Bowl. Are we not physically? I mean, we're second. We have the second best rusher in the league. Usually that is a defining factor of how physically imposing you are. This defense is pretty tough to play against. The running game is pretty tough to play against. So I wouldn't say that we're not. We're Kansas City Chiefs are just better than the 49ers in every single aspect. So, we're not better. We're not more physically imposing than them.
Yeah, I don't think we're the physically imposing. I talked about it coming into this game. I think it really just comes down to your players. I mean, you got to remember that team early on with Buckner and Armstead and Bosa. Like you seeing guys that are 6'6" line up across from you, 300 pounds. Like that's a big deal. And so we just don't have those players to where across the board we're so big, where it's not Alabama versus whoever anymore. That's just not the way that it is. The 49ers are going to have to win in different ways. But yeah, I still think that there's a physical style, especially to the run game. Certainly. I think that Mason brings that. I don't know that CMC would have, but Mason definitely brings a physicality. I think they're a physical individual. Yeah, go ahead.
Mustafa not
he is very, no, that's a good point. There's
a lot of
there's individual players that bring physicality for sure. And Dre, when he plays, he's the same way. Huff at times did as well. But as far as just being intimidated, the way that I think a lot of teams were early on, a lot of that comes down to physical stature, and the 49ers just don't have those guys anymore. They just don't. Not that they're soft. I don't think they're soft. Like, I feel like the opposite is, okay, then you're saying they're soft. I'm not saying that. They're just not the dominant, physical, imposing team that they used to be. Cryptic says, Jesse, tell me this. I was born at 11/11/90. Never witnessed a Super Bowl. Happy early birthday, by the way. Says that 94 team won after the Sanders acquisition. We have talent, but why? What are we missing? Just want to see one win in this 0-3 or they're 0-3 this decade. I feel bad for you fans that have never witnessed it. There's a lot that goes into a Super Bowl win. I think, luck is certainly underrated. Luck with injuries, luck with the ball bouncing your way, luck with officiating. I mean, there's a lot of luck that goes into it, certainly. There's great play in the biggest moments. Do you have that guy that's going to just go and take over a game? And I do want to bring up the Gronkowski thing that, again, seems old. It was 4 or 5 weeks ago, but he said it then. I think it was going into the game, the LA game that we were at, and people were like, "Oh, it's Jennings. Jennings is the guy." Where he said they have a lot of really good players. I don't see that guy that's like, "Get me the damn ball with this game on the line." I don't see that guy on the team, and maybe it's because there's a lot of good players and they don't want to step on each other's toes, but they are missing that, and they are missing that seemingly, at least from the outside looking in. They're certainly missing that. Feed me more Seahawks, says Brandon Ayuk, torn ACL. This is very, very old. Thank you for the update. RS says, I appreciate you guys praising the defense. Unfortunately, Kyle Shanahan will use them as a scapegoat today. I would love to hear his presser, and I'll go listen to it afterwards. Keith Murphy says, I agree, Jesse. You stop the fake punt, then throw a pick. And that was with people healthy. Chauncey says, you guys seriously think that was good defense when KC rolled down the field, running the ball down our throats to seal the game in the fourth quarter? Enjoy the next 20-year rebuild. Listen, you're clearly not a 49er fan. Good luck to your team. But no, I don't think it was excellent. I don't think it was like, oh my gosh, we can't criticize anything they did today. But they were clearly the best unit, and they were not the reason that they lost. Period. They were not. They put the offense in great situations a lot of that game, and the offense didn't capitalize, period. Samir says, from Mayoko, Coach Kyle Shanahan said that the 49ers are worried that Brandon Ayuk sustained a torn ACL. Again, a lot of these are really old. Appreciate you guys for the super chat. Saucy says, hey, Ravens fan here, and I'm curious on your opinion. Do you think you can win a Super Bowl with Kyle as your head coach? Can they? Yes. I wrote an article going into the 2021 season saying that I think Kyle Shanahan will eventually win a Super Bowl, but I do not believe it will be with the 49ers. And obviously nothing has happened since then to change my mind. Now, I almost had to be completely wrong when they made it last year, but it seems to be trending in that direction. Justin says, warm bath water, the best way to describe them. Okay. Matt says, sell at the trade deadline and throw money at Brian BJ for head coach. Okay. Ben Johnson. CB Niner says, why do we look unprepared every week? That's on coaching. It's on coaching. Bayou Boy says, Spags, Jedi mind trick Brock Purdy, gassing him up. Said he didn't see any weakness. Kyle should be feeling the pressure. This loss was embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, he did that after the Super Bowl last year, but the reality of the situation was the Chiefs game plan to stop Christian McCaffrey. If they believe Brock Purdy was truly who they said they thought he was, they would have game planned to stop Brock Purdy. They didn't do that. Golden Towel says, runner-up era is over. Matt McEwen says, Kyle Shanahan in 8 seasons has had 3 good seasons. We'll see how this season turns out, but yeah, you're right so far. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten, says he punched somebody when he played the Giants last year. Oh, cool. The Giants. But you're right. I'm wrong. You're right. I'm wrong. I said, find me a game. You found a game. I'm glad he did it against the Giants. Samir says, not to pile on, but you're 220 points back. All right. Okay. All right. Calm down. If I would have seen it, I got to do a better job at screening these things. This is super embarrassing. I don't want to even put that up. Where is quality control right now for this channel? Samir says, Jesse, please clarify who you think are the true franchise quarterbacks. Some are taking your word out of context. True franchise quarterbacks. Okay. right now, it would be Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, but he's old. So, I mean, you're not going to have him for much longer, but he was worth the money. I think Herbert is as well, but he's teetering. Now he's got his coach, so we may find out that he's not. And that would be it. I mean, I love CJ Stroud and what he's done. Still way too early for him. Jordan Love and what he's done. Still too early for him. There's not many. I wouldn't have paid Dak. I wouldn't have paid Kirk. I wouldn't have paid Tua. I wouldn't have paid Murray. So it's not just a Purdy thing. There's a lot of guys that I wouldn't have paid. Joshua says wide 9 is not working anymore. Okay. Mr. Funny says when the Niners had good field position and couldn't score the first few drives, I knew the Chiefs would win. He agrees with us, Sunil. First 4 drives. Niners need to punch first. When they have to come back, Purdy is prone to make mistakes. Okay. Xavier said, thank you for the $20, by the way. Xavier says, I've been a Purdy fan defender. I want him to succeed. With that being said, San Francisco should let him walk next year if his price tag is a penny over $35 million. I think this is the tough part, right? Because Brock Purdy deserves good money. He just does. He's been criminally underpaid. He deserves to get paid. But when you're looking at the business side of it, you have him one more year where he's still very inexpensive. So for me, I would make him play out that year. I just would. And then I would franchise tag him if he's worth it and then figure it out from there. James says straight liquidate 4-year window is closed. He agrees with me. Xavier says, unless Debo caught the plague, Debo quit on us. Ooh. Dave says, I've been saying it for 3 years, Sunil. He's not letting you go. Matt says, Sunil, I've been consistent with my takes. Culture isn't always just winning. It's team dynamic and energy, love for the coach and players. That's fair. That's fair. I think they've had energy and stuff like that. When you lose, everything goes bad. Everything's going bad, but you have been very consistent. Dave says, check the receipts 39 months ago on Grant Cohn cast. All right. We got 8 more, Sunil.
Yeah, 1 second on the Matt McEwen. And Matt, I'm not trying to go back and forth or at you. I just think that, recency bias is taking over. How many players have come back to the fore? We just saw recently New England. We just saw Kevin, what's the receiver's name? Kendrick Bourne. How excited he was to come back to the 49ers. We saw Azeez Al-Shaair when he's, come back to the 49ers. We've heard so many players talk about how fun and exciting it is to be a 49er. And we've seen so many people re-sign with this team, so on and so forth. I think it's just, it's shocking to me that people would want to, there's a lot of things to criticize this team about, that they have a bad culture and that people aren't excited to play here. I don't know. That one to me is shocking because I think I could point to plenty of examples of the opposite to that statement.
I'm not going to pull up your comment, Ross. Just be whatever. I was going to try to be nice, but I already said your name. I shouldn't have said your name. I should have just read the comment and not said your name. That's the right way to do it. So sorry if everybody piles on, but this is an awful take. This is an awful take. One has a cold when we literally just saw a player on an opposing team today with the Seahawks playing through a cold and playing very well, and the other tore his ACL. What the F are we doing with this take? Rodman says the Bay Area media is soft, no accountability for Kyle. Of course not. Why would they? Niner Matt says one more serious note. Ironic how we pick up a kicker from the practice squad and he performs the same as the guy that we spent a 3rd rounder on. I did tweet after he made that first kick. I said I've seen enough. Moody can go. And then he missed the extra point. And I did the gif of the idiot sandwich. You are an idiot sandwich. By the way, he's the same kicker that kicked for Green Bay and lost them that game last year against us. So there is that, or partially lost them that game. Loner Incognito says, you notice how when the Chiefs win, it's mostly because the other team loses themselves. Yeah, but that's just it, right? Like great teams stick around. They just hang around. They don't beat themselves in the big moments, and they let other teams fall apart. A lot of times that's what it is. 808 says Defo was a leader, but they got rid of him to keep AA. This team lives off of maybes and almost. The next few years look bleak if you pay Brock $50 to $60 million. I agree. Dave says, give Mason his flowers. Casey, shut the rundown all you for sure. You know what? I agree, Dave. Mason does deserve his flowers. He played very well considering the defense that they went against. He almost kept them in that game at times. He did. Slick Niner says, can we trade Kyle and bring in some first round picks and shore up a right tackle, fire the special teams coach, trade a high price wash up players? Certainly, you absolutely can. But again, careful what you wish for, especially if you're a Brock Purdy guy and you think he deserves all the praise and money in the world, because the new guy may not be with it. Niners for Life says the Niners need a Ronnie Lott type of guy who will hold everybody on the team accountable. I think the other part of this is we do talk like this and we're not seeing it on the field. Maybe there is that guy in the locker room. Maybe. But I will say I've never heard that. That's never been reported. It's never been written about. So it's not likely, but maybe it does exist. Poop Saget says, Buddy on the right is a type of fan to say that it's never Kyle's fault for the losses and say you want another Chip Kelly. I've never heard. Have you ever said that? I don't think you've ever said, do you want another Chip Kelly?
No. He's saying because I said the grass isn't always greener. I do blame Kyle Shanahan a lot. What I'm trying to say is everybody gets excited that you get rid of Kyle Shanahan. All of a sudden, all of these problems they're going to start winning and all that kind of stuff. I just give Kyle Shanahan his flowers too, that he's a good coach as well. And I think it doesn't have to be all or nothing is all I'm trying to say. There's more nuance to it.
Yeah. Keith says, why can't we stop Nicole Hardman? Dude, he almost got us again with that stupid freaking play, man. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's more why can't you stop Andy Reid and his creativity? Dave Barclay says, I said fire sale after the Rams game. Jess said too soon. Yeah, I think it was too soon. I mean, ultimately, again, I said it this offseason, but once you decided to go all in, you kind of needed to see things play out for a while. But ultimately, I think what you're saying is that you were right earlier, which is true. I am in agreement now with it. I'm in agreement now. Sunil, thank you for filling in for David. Thank you guys for watching. We held 1,800 plus strong the whole show between Twitter and YouTube. Really, really appreciate y'all for the support. Even if you disagree with me, thank you so much for watching the way that you guys always have. Even if you hate me, if you're watching, you're supporting me. So thank you for the support. Much love, y'all. Stay blessed. We're going to talk a lot about the future and all the things going forward. It's a long season. We still got a long time ahead of us to break things down, and we will definitely do so. But ultimately, I hope you all have a blessed night. Stay safe. We'll talk soon. Peace.